Good evening, and welcome to today's Tribune Talks. Today's session will be on, of course, flood in the time of pandemic and its impact on the economy and beyond. Today, we have with us Dr. Ainul Nishat, Professor Emeritus at BRAC University. Dr. Fahmida Khatun is the Executive Director of Center for Policy Dialogue, and Dr. Mohammad Liaquat Ali, who's the Director of Climate Change Program at BRAC. Welcome to you all. Let me begin with Dr. Liaquat Ali first. We know that climate change is supposed to manifest itself in stronger and more intense, more frequent extreme weather events. So you'd have cyclones and floods more frequently, and they would be more strong every year or increasingly stronger. What do you see? What do you think is a lesson to be learned from this flood that is going on in the context of climate change?
Thank you. You are absolutely right. The global warming and impact of climate change all over the world, including Bangladesh, is no more just talking. It's a reality. After 10 years, we are seeing a severe flood in Bangladesh. You can see 1988, and also after 10 years, 1998, which was severe in terms of delaying the flood. This year also, we see floods happening in two consecutive times with a very short period of time. So that's the things from the point of climate change we are talking. The rainfall or the precipitation will be happening either in pre-monsoon or in the post-monsoon. Because normally we have a perception, or it is actually fact, in rainy season or in monsoon there will be rain. But now in monsoon, there are rains, but these are not that much. If you see the statistics and the records, it tells or it proves it can happen either in pre-monsoon or in the post-monsoon. So that's why this year, one after another, flood hits Bangladesh. Even the second one hits beyond receding the floods. The another one comes. The northeastern part, central part, and also a little bit of southeastern parts is severely affected. And due to this flood, this is special. Why this time flood is special? Because we are passing a very crucial time because of COVID-19 situations. Because people's are under tremendous pressure, because I'm also working with the urban slum at BRAC. I'm also director for urban development program. We know the slum people, they came to slum living a very miserable lives there for livelihood. Most of them are, you may say, land erosion victim, or indirectly climate-induced effects victim. So they came here due to pandemic. They are jobless, they are moneyless, and they cannot afford their house rent. So they are again migrating to rural area. So then from there, they are now facing consecutively two floods. So these floods causes infrastructural damage. I can mention bridge, roads, culvert, and also agricultural loss. Livestock, fisheries, crops, and also human sufferings. You can see the drinking water, the sanitation situation, and the land erosion ultimately. So these kind of things you can say directly individual economic loss, community-based economy loss, and also countrywide as a nation, these are losses. So due to climate change, we are seeing the frequency and magnitude of the climatic disaster is happening. It's reality. So Bangladesh is not excluded. It is happening. So we are facing it very, very seriously now.
Thank you. Um, and as I promised Famidaba that I'd stay within your expertise. So coming to you, this time around, this seems to have been affected. This seems to have affected the uh, people around the country severely, especially because this is during a time of lockdown. The economy has slowed down, businesses are not there, and the government is having to deal with two different kinds of crises at the same time. So during other times, it is almost like generally we see that when there is a flood, most of the focus is on the flood victims and how we can help them. But this time, it was almost on the sideline. So I suppose they have been affected very badly. But I would also like you to explain how it affects the economy overall.
Thank you very much. You have rightly pointed out that this year's flood is like a double whammy for Bangladesh, because, as you have mentioned, that the country was already fighting the coronavirus pandemic since March, along with the rest of the world. And as you know, that because of the coronavirus pandemic, several people were already jobless, already incomeless for the last couple of months. And on top of that, because of the measures to contain this COVID pandemic, our country was under lockdown for 2 months. So that has really devastated the whole economic ecosystem. So people, particularly those who were in the informal sector, they were totally jobless, because as you know that informal sectors don't have any contract for permanent contract for their jobs. They don't have any job guarantee. They are low paid, and they are daily wage earners. So when the country was under lockdown, everything was shut down. The whole production system was disrupted. The supply chain was interrupted. So these people were nowhere. So they have those people, and among these people, actually, these are the people also who were just above the threshold of poverty line. So, but what had been, what had been the circumstances is that these people had immediately fallen below the poverty level. So as a result, the number of poor people had increased and their vulnerability has increased. And within that group also, there are some more vulnerable people. I mean, the women, the day laborers. There are a variety of activities where people are engaged. So this was the situation. And then when the economy started to move along in a limited capacity, and some economic activity started to regain and restart, these people had been involved in some of the activities at a limited scale. But again, what has happened that the floods have just emerged. And before the floods, we have experienced also Amphan, which was a cyclone, a super cyclone. So within a few, limited time span, we are facing two natural disasters, and the other one, of course, the health disaster previously, the COVID disaster. So there are a couple of, incidences which are leading to some sort of humanitarian crisis, economic crisis, social crisis, and of course, environmental crisis. So I would say that this double jeopardy has caused economic losses for a lot of people, and according to many estimates, more than 5 crore people are in poverty. And as I have mentioned, that the poverty, the people who were in the informal sector, they have also fallen below the poverty level. And the other thing is that because of this COVID situation, when this flood attacked, the rehabilitation activities became also very difficult, because for containing COVID-19 and to reduce the danger of COVID-19, we have to follow some health protocols. So physical distancing, hand washing, wearing masks, all these are necessary to to save ourselves from the risk of COVID-19. But because of this flood, I mean, one has to save one's life. So it is not possible to follow these health protocol. So on the one hand, people are becoming homeless. They have to go to the shelters where a lot of people have to stay together. It is crowded with limited facilities, and on top of that, with increased health risk. So also the lot of people, I mean, these when these people are in the shelter, among them a lot of people are vulnerable, the elderly people, the children, the girls, women, pregnant women particularly. So the health care situation has become a dire situation. And also on top of that, because of the disaster of because of the infrastructural uh, destruction, many infrastructures have been destroyed, including some clinics, rural clinics, also healthcare centers. So people also have limited access to those healthcare systems. So I would say that this is a multi-dimensional impact. So the floods and also the COVID-19 are having multi-dimensional impact on the people, and particularly the people who are already vulnerable in the rural areas, and of course in the urban areas, urban slums. So the in terms of economic cost, it would be huge. It is the flood cost cannot be estimated at this point in time because we don't have data. Once the flood recedes and fully we recover, then only we can know that how many bridges, how many roads, how many schools, how many hospitals, marketplaces, those have been destroyed, and how much agricultural production, including crop and non-crop, how much fisheries, how much livestock have been destroyed. So those estimates will come afterwards. But in a severe floods like this, it can go up to any extent 2 to 3% of GDP. We remember we had done an estimation in 2004, which was one of the severe floods in Bangladesh's history. So that was about over 3% of the GDP. So one hopes that this year is not so severe. But again, as I have mentioned, that some of the impacts are cannot be estimated in monetary terms, because the human sufferings you cannot really convert them into monetary numbers. So those intrinsic estimates are also there. Thank you.
Sure, but from what you're saying, I gather that not only will the flood affect our economic, but it will further delay recovery from the pandemic slowdown itself. So it eats away into that those potential gains as well.
Yes, definitely, because the measures the government had taken, I mean, along with the other countries and following the other countries, that in order to contain the COVID-19 risks, but this flood has hampered, and it is not possible to follow the health protocol at this point in time during this crisis moment. So it might have further impact in terms of having COVID impact in among many people. So health system might need more care, or might need to be reboosted to take care of the increased number of people who are attacked due to COVID-19. And besides that, even during floods, we have regular diseases. So the waterborne diseases and infections, these are common diseases during floods. So on top of that, this COVID impact. So this is really a critical moment.
Right. Even as we speak, there's a Category 4 hurricane hurtling towards the coast of Texas and Louisiana. And with climate change, these will keep happening more frequently, and we'll see even more stronger phenomenon. Dr. Anand, is there any way to deal with these things, to manage the floods with dams, barrages, warnings, what have you? Is it at all possible to prepare ourselves for these disasters?
Thank you. Thank you. Definitely it is possible to prepare, and we are prepared. Bangladesh is possibly one of the few countries in the world that is more or less ready. And if the gap between two disasters is big, then we lose our preparedness. I agree with Dr. Liaquat Ali, the point he made that climate change is going to increase the intensity and frequency of this disaster. And this year's disaster, to me, is not unusual. If you look into Water Board's database, you will find floods starting in the middle of June, end of June, and continuing up to end of September is there. It has happened many, many times. Even last year it happened. This year, right now, I was just checking the database of Water Board, which is available to anyone. Almost all the rivers are flowing right at the danger level or just below the danger level, and it is likely to continue till 1st of September. And after that, it will start receding. Some of the major rivers would recede, which is a bit early. But the areas that are underwater will remain underwater because danger level has to be understood from a technical point of view. Danger level means the river is flowing and the bankful condition may be a little higher so that the crops can be damaged. Or wherever there is embankment, it is flowing halfway between the bottom and the top of the embankment. So even if it goes below danger level, water level would remain quite high. Now, flood in September is bad because flood in September means almond crop is damaged. So in rehabilitation, agriculture side, we need to remember that. Now, my next point is, which part of the country is flooded? Most of the floods are in the chore lands. The chore lands are supposed to go underwater in the monsoon months. All the photographs of flood printed, whether in Dhaka Tribune or other Bangla newspaper or English newspaper, 95% of the pictures are taken from the chore. That's not flood. The chore people are ready. Chore people know it. Chore people are resilient. So we should move away from the culture of relief to the culture of resilience. What to do about the chore people? You advise them to make their homes higher by putting more earth, or make provision so that they can go to the higher land. The chore people easily moves to the embankments or to the schools and colleges, they take shelter. Their main problem is income because they don't have that kind of additional income which Fahmida has very clearly stated. Now, flood is one word and Bangladesh is one word. You mix up these two words, you do not understand the problem of flood in Bangladesh. You have to go to specific location and understand the problem of that area. Like you go to Sunamganj area, it's supposed to be underwater, it's expected to be underwater. So those 8 districts, Netrokona, Kishoreganj, Sunamganj, Hobiganj, Molibazar, Sylhet and Brahmanbaria, they are flood characteristics of one time. But the flood of Satkhira, Bagerhat, Khulna, Borguna are totally different. Right now, they are underwater and they are suffering tremendously. Why? Because the coastal belt of Bangladesh is covered with coastal embankment, in total about 6,000 kilometers in length, through polders which encircles an area. There has not been proper maintenance, which the government admits, and result is wherever there is weakness, there has been breach. Once there is a breach, the tide enters into the area twice a day. And during the spring tide, the full moon and new moon, the tide level is higher, the embankments are disturbed. This year again, this is the new thing, which is there has been warning number 3, cyclone warning number 3 of the last 10, 15 days, which means the sea is rough, the wind is high, the sea has swelled. So the spring tide coupled with sea level rise, coupled with high tide, coupled with this high wind, monsoon wind, the water level is very high. I didn't see much coverage of Ampang by newspapers because it's very difficult to go to that area. But I'm happy in today's newspaper, I forgot which newspaper I saw, the people of Gabura are trying to repair their embankment themselves. In 2007 and 9, in 2009 in Ayla, there was many breaches. One breach in Gabura, it took 3 years for the government to repair. This time the government the people themselves have organized themselves and are repairing it. Government has engaged the army where the breach level is very high. So for location-wise, you see this year, the worst flooding had been in Atrai area, which is in the Cholonbil area. That area is supposed to go underwater. But the water could not drain out as the Brahmaputra level was high. And the Brahmaputra level was high for a quite long time. In Chandpur, the water level was very high. Point I'm trying to make, Tanim, is we have to be prepared for next year and the after year and after year. While Fahmida and her team would definitely do a very good assessment of the loss, but that should not be the end product. That should lead us where we should have action next. One thing, the rural roads. I have seen photographs in newspapers, I could go to the field, that there is a Pakka road and there is a bridge and the water is flowing maybe 1 meter below the top of the road, which means it has not overtopped. Without going there, I can tell you, there was a khal, maybe 200 feet wide, 100 feet wide, and somebody has constructed a culvert over there, which is maybe 30 or 40 feet. It could not carry the water, therefore it failed. So next time, I would humbly request Fahmida and her team to identify where there's been breach in the road system, where there's been breach in the embankment system. Bangladesh is more or less protected by embankment. This year and last year the flood was even worse than this year's flood. Somehow it didn't get that kind of attention. Much higher than this year. So the Brahmaputra right embankment starting from Gaibanda to Bhagabadi Ghat did not breach last year and did not breach this year because the ministry took special care to repair them. So wherever there is a breach, we should identify, make sure it doesn't happen next year. Otherwise, similar type of flood may happen next year. We should support agriculture. And one thing we should do zoning. If the embankment breach, which area would be flooded? The fish farmers, the fish cultivators, they had invested a lot without being prepared for the flood. But the area which goes underwater regularly, the farmers are ready. The people would move their livestock to a safer place. There has been big loss in education sector. That should be studied and evaluated. One choice could be shift the academic session. Don't have the main exam and main studies during the flood season. Instead of giving holidays in November and December, give holidays in July and August. So there are various ways we should respond. We have excellent flood forecasting system. All the talking I do is based on Water Board's data and Water Board's forecast. They give excellent forecast up to 15 days. But for agricultural purpose, maybe you can need 3 months forecast. So the flood this year is very bad. But what I'm trying to tell you, next year it may be worse. 10 years henceforth, it is definitely going to be very bad. So we should prepare for future. And for that, we need support of NGOs like BRAC or others, because people need relief, people need support. The ultra-prone need support. For them, the civil society organization, NGOs can do nothing. And the research which Fahmida would be doing should guide us in taking our future decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Liaquat, let me come to you and ask. So, development organizations like BRAC are always in the field, and they're pretty much at the front, working for people and helping people. Where has BRAC had to put most of its effort in these floods? I'm sure the BRAC people are already stretched thin as they are with dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. but I'm sure they're also working to alleviate the problems of the flood victims. Where have you, where do you think they're having to work most? In other words, where do you think the improvement could have been, or the government has not been able to put in much effort?
Thank you. Before jumped into Brack's response, I like to add few points to add something to my Nisha sir. You see, the flood protection, for a long time, we always talk about flood protection. But after learning and learning, we know by this time, only flood protection cannot deal flood. Now we have to talk about flood management. Sir rightly pointed out, Water Board has probabilistic forecast for 15 days, but they circulate 3 days deterministic forecast, which is more accurate and robust. But the message they are giving, Sir also sometimes mention, it is understandable to us because we know what is dangerable, what will happen if level goes up. This year, you know, the surroundings of Dhaka, you see lot of hue and cry because the spring tide in the sea is higher, so it cannot drain out. Bangladesh is a drainage basin. You know, major river system, it drains through Bangladesh. So if sea cannot take during low tide, so it will happen. So this year it prolongs, so sufferings is longer. As a brag, you are rightly mentioned, we are from the day one during COVID, we are in the field. With our all wholehearted effort, we are doing response in health sector, in every aspects, whatever we can do. Raising awareness, distributing masks, distributing hand sanitizer, soaps, facilities creating like hand washing device, and all these things we are doing. But during this COVID, we face Ampan. At that time, you know, BRAC has a separate humanitarian directorate. So we have a system because every 64 district, we have DVC. It's called District BRAC Coordinator. They work with the government. So we have kept a reserve contingency fund there during emergency. So we know disaster like Ampan or flood like this year, we cannot deal with this small amount of emergency fund. So during Ampan, BRAC also contributed by distributing pure water through water trafficking, and also cash to the people so that they can repair their lost or damaged home. And this year flood, we also believe as a BRAC, we have to do something. So we started our response in 7 districts because we have gathered all the information. You know, our system is such, we can gather information because our presence in every union of Bangladesh. So through our network, we collected information. We know requirement is huge. So we strict to concentrate in 7 major districts affected by this year flood is Lalmonir, Hart, Kurigram, Gaibandha, Bogura, Jamalpur, Shirazganj, and Shunamganj. And also we identified 15 upazila, and we found 50,000 household. As Dr. Fahmida mentioned, lactating mother, elderly people, disabled people, income-less people, those who are settling at the embankment, they are taking shelter at the schools, they don't have foods. So we identified that kind of 50,000 people, and we distribute cash, 2,000 taka per family. Because we made a calculation, if you give them 2,000 taka, at least they can survive 15 days. They can buy their requirements as well as they can buy their foods. Not limited to taka 2,000 per family, we also distribute some reusable mask that was produced or prepared by our Aisha Abed Foundation. We also distribute soap, sanitizer, and also drinking water. So this type of intervention we did during this emergency flood situation. And also, you rightly pointed out, normally this kind of flood situation, not only BRAC, lot of other civil society or philanthropy organizations come forward, school, college students, they come forward, they like to go and do something. Due to pandemic situation, due to COVID, this kind of things are not that much vigilance this year. So the effort taken by the government also not that much. And also, the response from the donor community is not only that much. I like to mention here that, the Greta Thunberg, she got some money as a prize money and she made a foundation. And with this foundation, she came forward and she wants to help Assam flood. And they contacted us. And then we tell her, look, this is Assam flood, but it ultimately hits Bangladesh because this water drawn through Bangladesh. So then she divided the amount she promised, 50% for Assam, 50% for BRAC to response in Bangladesh. Amount is not that much, but she came forward with this amount to help during this kind of flood in Bangladesh. So yeah, you are rightly pointed out. I don't like to criticize the government because, not only BRAC, government also exhausted to dealing with this kind of COVID situation because, they have to put extra amount of money to transfer to the jobless people who are at the sufferer. Because due to this pandemic, not only the poor people become ultra poor, there are some what you call middle income peoples. So they are also jobless and they cannot afford their house rent even in the city like Dhaka. So they cannot go and ask somebody, please help me because of their status. But they are in this kind of situation. So this time we did something very fantastic because we took some times. Initially, we make a list of 50,000 peoples with bKash account. Because I know if you want to give something cash, you have to go there, you have to distribute, it takes time. So we collected with some time all the bKash number of them and we transferred by one switch. Just it goes directly to them. And everywhere there is an agent, they can just cash their money and they can do whatever they like to do. So this is the beginning of our response. We are working with the government. We are working with the INGO network. We're working with the donor community. And also we are working with the district administration, make some correct assessment. And also we are planning some preparatory work so that gradually we can do some recovery activity in the coming days. So one thing I like to mention, in Bangladesh, there is a Bangla is called Aitani and Kaitani. There will be that situation is not over. So we cannot say flood is over here. You can see, even if there is no rain in Bangladesh, even there is a heavy rain or flood in China and India, and that ultimately drains through Bangladesh, that may also cause floods. So there is a possibility of another wave, maybe within month or 45 days. I'm not sure. I cannot give guarantee because I don't have that kind of information. But still, there is a trend in Ashar and Ashin and Kartik. There is a spell, is a long spell of rain. If it happens, there will be another possibility of flood. So that's from the backside I like to mention here as a flood response.
Thank you, Dr. Famida Khatun. We've already discussed the problem that the economy faces. It's been a double whammy, as you said, and so it will further delay the recovery. My question is, how much further will it delay? We would, of course, like the economy to restart tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. So how many months? And what should be the government doing, or what should be the government steps towards expediting that recovery, in your opinion?
Right. If you talk about floods, as the experts have been discussing, and we all know that flood is an annual event. So we have somehow coped with the flood be it or moderate level flood or be it a severe flood. So we have now developed some sort of resilience towards floods. So that, is every year it comes, so we know how to deal with it. But now the other bigger problem with the COVID, I think you are referring to that actually, recovery from COVID. So one doesn't really know about the timeline of recovery from COVID-19 because we are not yet over with it. There are a lot of uncertainties and unknowns attached to COVID-19 situation still today. I mean, in March, we have thought maybe it is within 2-3 months it will be over. Then we started to think that maybe another 6 months. Now, sitting in August, and looking around, hearing about the innovations and vaccinations on all these and testing. So we feel that, and also the danger of a second spike in the coming winter in many countries. So we really don't know when this disease will be, over. And as a result, many countries have, gone through severe economic cut down, severe economic stress. And as we know that in Bangladesh also the growth rate has become a big debatable issue. But if you look around, if you see the numbers estimated by World Bank and IMF, they have estimated GDP growth negative for many developed countries. Even for larger countries like India, and for China it is 1%, and even the developed countries negative growth. So and also the forecast of COVID-19, it's no economist also can do that, but some predictions are there. So economists have come up with many scenarios that it can be, initially it was thought that it will be a V shape, meaning that, the economy will go down, and once COVID is over, it will quickly start picking up, so go upward again. But that's not going to happen. Now, some have discussed about the W shape, that it will be a bit of, it will go down, it will go up a little bit, go down again, and then pick up. So that means that it will take some time and in between. And then there is the other pessimistic scenario is that the recovery will be L-shaped, that it will go down and will remain flat for a longer time. In fact, I have seen that many predictions have been made. In the case of USA, they have said that it will be, the shape will be like none of these three, but it will be like a shape as the Nike symbol. You have seen the Nike symbol, that it go down and then gradually you go up. So slowly, you don't go sharply up. So it can be, so gradually going up means that the recovery will be for a longer period. I know some economies are looking at till 2030. In our country or in some of the South Asian countries, we are thinking of a 3 to 5 years recovery period, but we really don't know. But hoping that the disease will be under control by next year, even then, I feel that it will be, at least an affair of 3 to 5 years to regain what we have lost. So that is the scenario. But having said that, the next part of the question, that what really one has to do, the policymakers, and I think in all the countries, now the main problem is to deal with the health crisis. So how to contain the disease, how to get away with this disease, that is the major issue. And then I think many countries, including Bangladesh, we have to run the economy. So we have, I think we are following right now a policy of probably herd immunity, in the sense that now the government has decided to open up everything. The offices are open on a regular basis. So which meaning that we have to live with the COVID for some time now, and we have to know how to deal with it. So regarding the other, I want to add 2-3 points regarding the flood also. is that we are talking about, both the experts have mentioned that we have to now move from the culture of relief to resilience, and also we have to know how to manage flood better, in a better way. One of the ways, I'm not an expert, but I'm just from my reading of many articles and expert opinion, is that one of the ways, of course, to build embankments, better embankments, not just embankments which every year which has to be repaired and all. So if we can build better embankments, and also if we can repair those embankments which have already been broken and destroyed, that will save a huge amount of losses, because the districts which have better embankments, they have lesser losses. So that is, from media report we can see that. So, but however, what we see that in terms of repairing embankments, or in terms of doing any infrastructure in Bangladesh, this is a perennial problem, which is that the work starts invariably during the rainy season. So we talk about, every year, throughout the year, we talk about implementation of annual development programs, but we see that up to 9 months, 50% of the activities are not done. So, and towards the end of the year, very quickly, in a hurried way, all these infrastructural projects are done, which means the quality is being compromised, and they get destroyed even with a spell of rain. So this process, this whole culture of project implementation, or the cycle of project implementation, has to change actually. So the delay of initiation of this project implementation process delays the implementation or initiation of the project and completion of the project. But as just a couple of days back, when we organized a dialogue where Professor Ainul Nishat was there, he recommended that these embankments should be finished by March, not just towards August, July, August. So it should be finished in time.
Let me go to Dr. Ainul Nishat. 3 to 5 years, as Dr. Fahmida Khatun was saying, for COVID-19 pandemic, perhaps, but climate change will have to deal with far longer period. She's already mentioned embankments, and you've also mentioned, sir, a few measures that might increase our resilience and perhaps add to flood proofing. Could you outline very briefly 4 or 5 things that would increase our resilience or ensure flood proofing?
Okay. What we do in disaster management or flood management, divide the activities into 2 types. One we call structural measures, the other called non-structural measures. By structural measure, we try to reduce the impact of the event, and by non-structural measure, we try to reduce the loss from the event. So structural measure, the best thing we can do is dike system, and I'm happy to say Bangladesh has almost 80% of the country with dikes, which was not there 50 years back. Present problem is that timely operation and maintenance, timely reconstruction where it has failed. The second thing is we need to go for zoning. We need to tell people in advance that you could be affected, you better be ready for it. We may have flood bypass. For the urban area, Liaquat said, the urban area is a big problem. Like Chittagong is facing a big problem. There we need to have very strong drainage mechanism. We need to have warning system. And Liaquat very rightly said the warning system is there, but it is not understood by common people. So it must be understood by common people. And then we should have better conveyance capacity. The river should be able to convey better. We may develop some storage. All the bills in Bangladesh, khals and bills have been occupied and filled up by illegally. So we can re-excavate the bills to create better storage. Together with flood, another problem is emerging, which is riverbank erosion. So we also need to train the river a little bit here and there so that the erosions are under control. The river does not need, in many cases, not everywhere, the space it is occupying. My submission is we should kind of analyze exact problem of that particular area and come back with a solution. There is no general solution for every place. Like in Chittagong, there is heavy flood right now. Borguna, there is serious flood. Satkhira, there is serious flood. And all these three locations, their flood problem is different from that of Rajshahi and Cholonbil and Sylhet and Tangail and others. So we should be more specific, and it is right time to start thinking, because the nature of the problem is going to be more acute in coming days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And with that, we conclude today's discussion. Thank you all very, very much for your time. This has been a wonderful discussion. And